introduce it?
I would just say, welcome to my podcast. Today I have this guest. We're going to be talking about such and such. And then you just go right into asking me questions.
Okay.
Like, because you got to remember, nobody wants to sit through and wait for, a whole podcast, description of it.
Right.
You can have that as a separate thing where you just have your intro when it's just you.
Yeah.
But right here, I'm here. This is my podcast. Today I have, and you just go right into it. People want information right away. They're not trying to hear all this other stuff.
Right.
That's how they do it. The same thing with the Craftsman Online. He's like, I have Jeremiah Campbell with me. In that case, he was, worshipful Jeremiah Campbell, but the Craftsman Online, they were looking for masters and, past masters and stuff like that. So that's why he did it. But we were right into it. He's like, look, I'm here with Jeremiah Campbell. We're going to talk about so-and-so and so. He didn't tell me what it was about. He just started shooting stuff out. And I kept hitting him. He's like, yo, this is crazy. He's like, and then it went good. It got to Grand Lodge.
So there you have it.
That's how you're going to do it.
Brother, friend, confidant, somebody who I cherish and adore and respect in such a high manner.
And I appreciate that.
I'm going to air that because I was having trouble with my introduction. And, the subject matter of the night is brotherhood. And what better way to start it with you giving me tips?
Yes. Yeah, that's the best way to do it. That's what brothers do.
Absolutely. So if you could just introduce yourself, when you were raised, what lodge you belong to.
Okay, so the interesting thing about me, my name is Jeremiah Campbell. You could just say Brother Jeremiah Campbell. My story is rather interesting. I never had any idea of what Masonry was leading up to 2014. One of the things that I've always wanted to do in my life is be a wrestling coach.
Oh, wow.
Okay, because wrestling was something that saved me as I was growing up. Different things were going out. Obviously things in the world, when you're in certain areas, you're influenced by certain things. I had a coach that really saw something in me and brought me into wrestling when I was about 15 years old. All right, so that journey made me and earned me a scholarship to Boston University and for wrestling. So after I got out, I started doing, I became an engineer, different things like that. And I always wanted to do it. So in 2014, Hills West in Dix Hills, one of my friends, he was actually the athletic coordinator. He called me up like, yo, I know that you are a good wrestler. I've wrestled with him, did stuff with him and shown him at the highest level. Would you be interested in coaching wrestling for the school? So I started coaching wrestling for the school. And through that, I met certain people that were also, affiliated with Masonry and things like that. But it never really drew interest. The funny thing about it is one of the siblings of one of the wrestlers, I coached their softball team with my wife, and she actually went and told her dad about her new coach, who was me. So I was actually simultaneously coaching varsity wrestling and, little league softball team.
Wow.
And funny thing is, it was her recommendation that the father, who was Dave Hirsch from Cornerstone Lodge in Manhattan, I never knew this guy, didn't know anything about him. He came up to me at a wrestling meet and he watched me, I was coaching the kids, just the way I was coaching. When I'm in that mode of wrestling, it's a different mentality. It's just a passion and love. I love, I can't say I love wrestling more than the craft because I really adore what Masonry is, and we'll get to that soon. But wrestling is such a true brotherhood. It's you and one other person. There's no excuses. You lose, you lose. You win, you win. It's just you and the other guy. So funny thing is, it was through softball that got me into Masonry. He came up to me and said, yeah, I know that you're coaching wrestling. I know about my son, all this stuff. But my daughter told me that she had an unbelievable coach, and she's never, ever said anything about that. And I said, I just go, no matter what I'm doing, it doesn't matter if it's wrestling, it doesn't matter if softball, whatever, badminton, it doesn't matter. I got to give what I am. So I just taught those young women, you're better than everybody else out there. I asked all of them, when you wake up in the morning, you do the same thing that they do. They put their clothes on the same way you put your clothes on. Right. So, that girl that's throwing that 50-mile-per-hour softball, you're going to hit it, but you have to believe it. And these are just the little things I said to them before games. We went undefeated, by the way, and won the championship, but I'm going to give credit to my wife about that. But she gives me all the credit. It's just the motivational speakers. Right. I'm very good at that because I was taught that before I came into Masonry from my coach. Mm-hmm. When you dig deep and you're able to display it and you don't show fear, because honestly, sitting here with you right now, talking to you about it, I was scared of the other teams with the softball because I can't go out there and do it for them.
Right.
And these were like, very, very young women just trying, they wanted that. They wanted to achieve it. And like I said, Dave Hirsch is a brother, so you can verify everything with him from Cornerstone Lodge in Manhattan. he was amazed at what I was able to do with my wife to bring out their passion of wanting to win and bonding together. So that's how I was introduced into Masonry, through a young girl that saw that he's motivating me like nobody else ever did. And I don't know what he's doing, but he's making me feel that I can take on the world. Those are her words. I can just take on anyone. So from that, I was referred to Jeff the Lodge, because he's all the way in the city. I'm not going to go to the city. Obviously, I'm coaching wrestling in Long Island and everything. So he found me Jeff the Lodge. I was introduced to Warren Melnick, and the rest is history. I became a Mason, fell in love with it, and that's when my journey started.
What type of role models did you have growing up that allowed you to? And I don't know if this is something that is just tailor-made in you, or is this something that you kind of embodied by watching other people in the world? Like, what are the ingredients that make Jeremiah?
The ingredients will have to be the fact that I was without. Similar to the way when you go through in the beginning and the secretary comes and asks you what you got, I was without. My dad left when I was really, really young. So there was no real male role model. My uncles were athletes, but they weren't really, people that I looked up to. I had to find things within myself to kind of, gear myself towards. Like I said, when you have no direction, and if somebody's watching this and they're trying to figure out, where do I go, and you're above a certain age, I think Masonry is something that will definitely gear their minds toward the right way. But being a young man, like, what was I, 10, 11? Obviously, you can't. I didn't know about Demolay. I didn't know about any of these things like that. So there's no other guidance. Temporarily, I moved from Hempstead to Brooklyn to Uniondale, things like that. I'm going into areas that my mom could afford. Obviously, it's not the best surroundings. So I have to find a way to, accommodate myself. So I had to learn to be a leader, because it's either one of two things. I'm going to end up in jail, or, I'm going to do the right thing. And as a son with a single mom, the one thing that I never wanted to do was hurt her. I didn't, obviously, and it's just the plain truth. A woman by herself can never raise a man. It's very, very hard for a woman to tell a man, you got to do this, you got to do that. It doesn't work that way. That's why most young men need fathers. For me, I was fortunate, like I said, in high school when I met my coach, Timothy Godoy, a 3-time All-American. He was what I needed at that time to keep me away from certain other demons.
And this is ninth grade, you
would
say?
10th grade, because in Uniondale, they started 10 through 12, and then the junior high school was different. Brooklyn, they had it where you went from, 5 to 8, but when I came to Long Island, it was switched up. So high school started in 10th grade in Uniondale. And meeting him was one of the most beautiful things that I've ever experienced, because at the first moment, he just believed in me. And remember, I had no previous experience. Yeah, I could fight, stuff like that. You just learn that from just being in the areas that you are.
Yeah.
I had no idea about wrestling.
Do you think that he might have saw you as super coachable or just skill?
He probably, just because, usually the coaches have a class, and I knew him, he was teaching health or something like that. They have a minor, and just talking with me and understanding the influence that I had, I would say something, the class would respond. He's like, yo, you're a leader. These guys, why are you able to tell that guy to do that? That guy don't listen to anyone.
Right.
What's going on? Things like that. Even my wife right now was my wrestling manager. And you've met her several times. Everything that I'm saying is validated. It's like somebody knew and watched me do it. So she saw me as this young, broken man, young child, meet this coach and turn into a completely different person.
Wow.
So she actually witnessed it, and even more now with the transformation through Masonry, she appreciates it even more. So just like we were talking about earlier with the rough Ashlar, that's what I was the roughest of Ashlars. And we'll never attain the perfect, but I'm on that journey now, and it started with him.
So when it comes to just that constant drive to attain the best version of yourself, what feeds that? Is it to, the fact that you want to make your mother proud? Or is there, what's missing, or what are you trying to add? What brings that out? And how could other people that use that as an excuse?
Yes, to not do the right thing.
Use it as fuel to attain the greatest self?
Okay, so part of Masonry it in itself is to attain a better man. The previous Grandmaster, it was to make good men better. Right now, under our current most worshipful, Stephen Adam Rubin, it's going to be where men build meaning. And the reason that I like his motto
I like that.
is because we can't take someone that's not a decent person and make him someone that you and I would want around our family.
Right.
I'm very serious when it comes to the craft about having people around that I know is not going to violate their obligation and is going to take that part seriously. I take that extremely seriously. You can ask about me with the district or anything like that, because I don't think it's fair for a craft this beautiful that was started based, you can't taint it. And obviously we're going to have people, nothing is perfect. So you're going to have brothers that are going to be suspended. You're going to have brothers that's going to be expelled. But if you stay the course and the guidelines to what it is, that should never be an issue. As far as what keeps me going, I think people, they misconstrue that statement. You should never want to be something because somebody else wants you to be it or you want to make somebody else proud. That is a very big falsity, because if I was only doing this to make my mother proud, what does it mean with everybody that I engage with? That has nothing to do with it.
Right.
If I'm a good man and I'm trying to do the right thing all the time, it has nothing to do with anybody else wanting to see what I am or me using that as fuel or an excuse not to do it. For instance,
I like that.
if I say I do it for my mom and I have a falling out, which family does, what do I do now? Am I lost? Am I broken? I relied on somebody else for that strength. The basis of it is to be you first, because people are going to look to you to ask you advice. I've spoken to you many times. Yeah, I've been in situations where I've been broken also, but I can't bring that to my brothers. I got to stand firm and then still assist him and be ready to go with whatever's there. The problem is a lot of people use excuses for whatever they want to do in their life. It doesn't matter. Like earlier today, I was talking to someone and he's telling me, I cheated on my wife. So I'm saying to him, I said, okay, so what are you calling me for? And he's saying, I don't really know. No, you're looking to see if I'm going to agree with what you did and make it ease, but I'm not going to do that for you today. So long story short, at the end of the conversation, I love you, Jeremiah, because a lot of other guys would have said, whatever, it is what it is. It's not about that though, because even if you didn't want to be with her, you could have left her in a different manner. You could have left her as an upright man and Mason. What happens is everything that you do is a reflection on the craft. So no matter what your field is, no matter what you do, when you leave out of a Masonic building, you still represent our Grand Lodge. And I don't think people realize that. So you are a small part of a huge fraternity that we only know of, 300, 400 years? You think Masonry was just started 300, 400 years ago?
No.
It goes back thousands of years. But it's the principle. See, the principle of morality. You don't have to live by any code. You just have to be a decent person. And you might say, okay, what if we bring in someone that doesn't understand what a decent person is? That's also a falsity. Because if you just look at what life is, you can distinguish right or wrong. It's very obvious. The only thing missing from us and animals is conception. Taste, hearing, everything is the same. They just can't conceptualize. But you know what they do? They protect their pride. They protect their young. How do they do that? You don't need to conceptualize to do it. So that excuse has always bothered me. When a brother violates his obligation and he has an excuse, it's an absolute joke to me. Because if an animal cannot conceptualize, how do they know not to do it?
Right.
But you're a human being and you can still decide, but you do it. And then now you want to fall back and find an excuse
to justify.
Right. There you go.
Right.
So when you talk about Masonry, and this is where the other transformation came with my wife, she said, you're changing. Because when you become a Master Mason, you don't really understand it. You have a couple guys do a couple things and you hear certain things and you see certain things, but it's still new. You don't know what's going on. It's after that where you start to build, because everything that you're taught in the third degree is nothing compared to when you excel to the next version of Royal Arch. Remember, theoretically, Masonry is 7 degrees. So the Master Mason is something that we utilize here as the first part. So you're not even really that true brother yet until you go through the Royal Arch. So you can still technically err. You can still make mistakes. Don't violate your obligation. I don't want to hear that you're doing something with a sister, a mother, a daughter, a widow.
Right.
I don't want to hear that. But you can make mistakes. But you're not really enlightened until you become a Royal Arch Mason. And remember, in England, it's the 7 degrees. You got to do all 7. So people have to understand it's a building process. When I visualize what Solomon was thinking about when he created Masonry, he just wanted brothers that he can trust. How many brothers, how many fellow craft were employed at the building of King Solomon's temple? 80,000. Do you know how many brothers that is?
That's a lot.
So do you want people to be around you that you don't trust?
Absolutely.
Do you want people around you that you can't look in the eye and know that he has your back no matter what? This is what I strive to do in this craft. This is what I do. This is why I go to the different lodges and I sit with the brothers and I talk to them, because when you represent us and you do these things, how can I go to a new brother and explain to him, you need to join this if you're doing that? How can I not hold myself accountable? How can I not do the right thing? And I took an obligation to be a better man, to represent our most worshipful in the Grand Lodge of, of Free and Accepted Masons in the state of New York. How can I do that? So these are the things that I take very, very seriously, like my own family. You become a Mason because you're seeking light. What do you do with that light when you get it? Once you get it, you're supposed to evolve it. You're supposed to, show your new brothers the light. You're supposed to make the world see that it's different. You're supposed to change. In some aspect, anybody that becomes a Master Mason should change. How many brothers did you talk to after they're raised and they're the same exact guy? Now, whose fault is it? Is it the lodge? Is it that brother not wanting to change? Is the lodge not providing the education that they need? It's a lot of different things. But what I'm saying to you, to solidify your question, it doesn't start with anybody, you doing it for anyone.
Yeah.
You do it for yourself first, because you represent you. Because everything, all these moving parts can change. I can leave here today and something happens to me, you never see me again. But what do you have? You have the memories. You knew what I stood for. That's what our brothers did before us. We're just carrying a legacy.
So just to touch back and circle back, I want to touch on two things first, but just going back to the transition you made from pre-coach to meeting your coach.
Oh, okay.
So at that point in time, you were comfortable, nobody could tell you who you were.
Nope. I wasn't listening to anyone.
So what was the transition from that to the continuous journey to attaining the perfect Ashler? Like what changed where you said, the way this guy lives or the way this guy presents himself or what this guy sees in me, obviously this is the Jeremiah I'm going to present to the world, if I'm saying it right?
Yes, that's a very good question, because my wife often asks me the same thing. Because when she first met me, she's, just being a teenager, young boy, you're just doing whatever. You're hanging out, you're doing, weird stuff, whatever. And I meet him, and, it took some time. He was, whatever class he taught or anything like that, starting to have conversation. And he started to explain to me mental toughness. Before I met him, you don't talk about that stuff when you're out in the street with your friends and stuff. Who talks about mental toughness?
You're not really conscious of it.
Yeah, you're not really conscious of what you have. And he said to me, you have mental toughness. I'm like, I don't understand. You have the power to do things that you set your mind to. Like, and he started to bring examples. Like, what have you ever wanted to do that people told you couldn't?
Right.
And you still did it. And I started to think like, this guy is right. Like, it doesn't matter. Whatever I want to do, I put that time, I put the effort in. And through that part, he made me want to listen to him. So it's sort of like you being a worshipful master. When you come to deliver to your brethren, which is what you do, you open a meeting, you tile it, and theoretically you're creating heaven. If you look at what Solomon was doing, every time you tile a meeting, that's actually your part of heaven. So every time you have those brothers in the lodge, you're sharing heaven with them. It's a beautiful thing when you tile a meeting, and you are representing Solomon as that master in your lodge when you open it. It's theoretically heaven. If you go, I read a lot of books about it, that's what it's the portrayal of, right? So you give them something that they don't ask for. He gave me that free knowledge. You have this. Now, I could have chose not to believe him, and everything would have been history. I would have never got a full scholarship. That was at that time like $35,000 a year, whatever. My mom was amazed when they sent the actual check. She's like, what are you doing? Because my mom only went to one of my meets. Because she was, single mom. She had like 3 jobs. She's trying to do everything she can to make sure that my siblings and I can eat. So when you talk about, what made me want to listen, it was just that. You just touch on something that draws interest. Like every time you give a lecture or you speak to your craft, you should be wanting to give them something to take away from that meeting. You should want to give them something to think about. That's what your job is. It's all about education and understanding what they're a part of. If they never understand what it is, why would they come to your meeting?
Did you feel a sense of I don't want to say accomplishment? So anytime, I've been in a stage of my life where, let's say I've been rewarded with a promotion at work.
Okay.
And, you go through the job phase and that conversation comes up, why did you choose me? And they might describe certain character traits that you have.
Yep.
And you may think to yourself, wow, it's wonderful to be seen the way that I see myself, right? To be exactly who you think you are.
Okay.
And not so much the way that you present yourself to the world, but what you want to represent, right?
Yes.
And also, like, you wanna infect.
Yes.
I know infect might have a negative connotation.
A negative contact, yes.
But in a way, it's
positivity.
You're bestowing yourself upon the people around you. And
Yes.
you say, you're decorating your environment. Right?
Yes.
There should be a little bit of you in everything you do. How you do anything is how you do everything.
Yes.
And even the smallest tasks, right?
Yes.
And that's why something simple as a secret handshake, if I can trust a man to keep that,
Yes.
which he may deem that this is not, well, it's just a handshake.
Yes,
What's the big deal? You know,
Yes.
it's a cool little thing.
No.
But if I could trust him with something so simple as that, then his honor, his word,
Yes, it means more.
it means so much more. Before we go heavier into the subject, if you could describe what Masonry is to you, because we've gone deep and we've hit some certain
Yes.
topics, but I want to know if I was somebody at your job and, I'm watching you and I say, man, I love the way Jeremiah carries himself. I love the type of leader he is. I want to almost embody him in a certain way, or I see myself in the way he carries himself, but I'm not as polished, or maybe I'm a little bit abrasive and I want to come up with a better way to just exist.
Okay.
Where the more positive traits that I have
Okay.
exist. So if we could touch on what does it mean if I say, not what does it mean, but if I asked you, what's Masonry? I see you post on Facebook. You went to a Masonic function. What is Masonry?
Masonry is pretty much life. It's not a culture. It's not a cult. It's not something that any kind of depravity that people may talk about it. It's life. You're living Masonry. And that's what I view it as. So all the principles, if you look it up, faith, hope, charity, most people are going to come up with that. But we're much more. Masonry, if we view it as life, it becomes natural to do it. The principles that are taught therein, Masonry in itself is such a huge, it's so much. So when you ask someone that question, it can't be, it's this or it's that. Mm-hmm. It has to be one thing. It has to be life. Because if it's not your life, then you're not a Mason. Because ultimately, like I said, we go back to 80,000. That number is very significant in our craft. Because of the fact that it's such an abundance of people that you're willing to have around you within the temple. And you have to find a way to trust these guys. You have to find a way to know that they are, in fact, who they say they are. How can it not be life? What is it? Just, I'm a Mason. Sometimes I'm not. It's life. And you embody the principles. Even in your most angry times, what do? You have to subdue your passions. Everything is written out for you. It's if you're willing to accept it. So if anybody asks me, my response is different from a lot of people that actually are asked the same question, because that's how I view it.
Right.
And if we don't stand on that principle, what are we teaching the crowd? What are we teaching our brothers? Oh, what's Masonry? Oh, it's 3 books. People will say stuff like that. It's 3 books. It's an understanding.
It's a fraternity.
Yeah, it's a fraternity.
Yeah.
I don't view it as that. I view it as life, because the principles that are found, and if you go, like I said, all the way back to what Solomon wanted, it's a way of life.
Right.
And that's how it should be viewed. And I think that the world needs to see more of these type of podcasts where 2 brothers sit down and we talk about what Masonry is so they can understand. We're normal people just like everybody else. It's not all this other stuff that people say, but we've been judged wrong throughout all of history. The King of France, we know the real meaning of Friday the 13th. People going all the way back to De Molay, with the whole situation where he had that situation. People don't like the fact that we have certain things to ourselves. Mm-hmm. So just like anything else, if you stay to yourself in real life, you're going to have more people that dislike you than not, because your circle is small. Right. Just like our fraternity, if you want to call it that, in Masonry is small. We don't have a lot of Masons according to the population that we have.
Right.
Very, very, because you have to have a certain type of character. You have to, represent something. And number one, you have to be vouched for by somebody else that's already a Mason. So now that person takes you on as a representative, because no matter what, the person that sponsors you is always a part of your journey. So it's either good or it's bad. So you have to remember that's why it's life to me, because they tell you, don't bring someone in that you may not see suitable. Everything is written out for us. So they're pretty much laying out a way for us to live our lives. So Masonry is life.
It's one of those rare systems where it's a pure system of empowerment, not dependence.
There you go.
For me, it's always been hard for me to answer that question based on the audience.
Yes.
Too, because certain people, you can almost, and I hate to prejudge, but you can see what is their motive. Like,
yes.
So what do you get out
Correct.
of this?
Yes.
What do you get out of
yes.
this? Well, what do you bring to it?
Yes.
And a lot of times too, we, in our efforts to dwell amongst other men or people in general, you fall in love with their potential and not necessarily who they are.
Yes.
And I think one of the biggest things that we've done as of late in the craft is this guy would be a good Mason.
Yes.
But is he a good Mason? Because
yeah.
where you found a Mason first? In your heart.
In your heart.
And I think that's a big mistake where I've interviewed a lot of older gentlemen from the craft, and they would explain that we waited a year, 2 years, 3 years before we even entertained the question.
Yes.
And in some sense you have stock in the craft. In some sense, it built this hunger.
Yes.
And nowadays it's almost what I've seen. I'm not judging based on my Masonic experience.
Which you should. You're speaking based on what you've seen.
I'm not saying anything that represents Masonry as a whole.
Okay.
But from what I've seen is, from degree to degree, there's almost an entitlement. Like, hey, when is this going to happen?
Yes.
When is this going to happen?
They're not really understanding the process through it.
Right.
And we were talking about that earlier. It's sort of like when I first got here, we were talking about progressive lines. Just because somebody is a good, junior deacon, that doesn't mean he's going to be a good senior deacon. Okay? Just because somebody's senior warden, that doesn't mean you put him in the master's chair. What you do is not positivity. It's actually a detriment to your craft, to your lodge, when you put someone that's not capable in a capable position.
Right.
Because for me, if you're not good at something, but you have a great personality and things like that, it's not what it's about. Masonry is not about that.
No.
Okay, you can, you present well. What are you? Like you just said, where are you first prepared to be made a Mason? In your heart, do you have what it takes to lead men? Can you leave this better than you found it? So we spoke about this really briefly, about my thoughts on that, because I believe you have to earn it. If you come out and you're better visually and ritually and just everything about you as character than someone that is ahead of you, it's a very tough decision, but you have to make the right one. And that's what comes with that pressure. You're currently the sitting master. Those decisions fall solely on your shoulders. If you see something that's not suitable, yes, it hurts because they're your brother, but it's not about the brother, it's about the craft. What is best for the craft? Right. It's not what's best for you. You don't even matter. With all due respect, I didn't matter as worshipful master. You think I mattered? All that matters.
Serve.
We're here to serve.
Right.
The title is just the title.
Custodians of the craft.
That is it. We are here to serve. So if we're building up our craft and we're bringing the next person to represent, is he there to serve?
Right.
Or is he there to serve himself? Is he just there to get the apron and then we don't see him again? And I hear a lot of this about, you got to have, the sideliners and the guys like that. And I get that because we have to have dues. We have to, we have bills to pay. You got bills to pay. So the sideliners have their certain part. But those guys can be put to use as well. They can do stuff like stewards. They can go to events and clean up. Everybody doesn't have to be a ritualist, but everybody has a position to play.
That's part of the 80,000. Not every 80,000 were Master Mason.
Yeah, because they're fellow craft. Yeah, and everybody's not going to make it,
right.
But they were good at what they did. Yeah. If they exceeded and were honored to get to that stage, they were made. But everybody wasn't made a Master Mason.
And that's one thing that I had read in a book in regards to Masonry, whether it's ritual, whether it's the opening and closing, whether it's a charge. You learn how to partake in lodge. You
Yes.
know how to bring whatever you bring to lodge, right? You can disappear on the sidelines, or you can say, hey, how do I do this? How do I do that?
There you go.
And sometimes, depending on the type of lodge, you might get that push.
Yes.
I know in my career, a lot of the things that allowed me to kind of climb the ranks, I found in a Masonic lodge room. Public speaking.
Yes.
You know, the reassurance that brothers offered me, I sat back and said, if this does this for me, I could only imagine what a bunch of people who respect me
Yes.
would feel hearing that. Also, too, you know, we go into life, a lot of times as men, you're proud and
Yes.
you don't want to receive help, right? But you want to
Yeah,
give it.
You want to
You're
give
quick
it.
to
Yeah. That's the hardest thing. Yes.
But one of the things that I realized is one of the best ways to show somebody that you love them is to allow them to love you.
That's it. Yes.
You know, and to accept that help.
Yes.
And to allow somebody to feel like, wow, I did this. And it's a
I agree.
beautiful thing. And within the system of Freemasonry, whether it's, hey, listen, I just cooked. Can you take the garbages out?
Yeah.
Can you do this?
That's
You know,
yes.
a lot of times when we're in the real world, we might say, well, he didn't offer.
Yeah.
Yeah, but whose fault is that?
Yeah, yeah.
Also, if this is
I
something that
agree.
you need, you should have the confidence in your brother to say, do you mind doing this?
That's it.
Right? And also, in doing that, you know your brother. You get a chance, an open window into his psyche.
Yes.
Right? Do I ask him? Do I tell him?
Yes.
You know, is he going to take it a certain way? Do I have to sugar? What is the best way that this gentleman is going to receive my message?
Yes.
Right? And in doing that, you're honing your skill
There you
in
go.
communication, right? Because this is your brother. So
There you go.
equally.
Yes.
It doesn't matter if he's a banker, a mechanic, a
All
janitor.
on the level.
Right. So, can you touch on that?
Yes. So one of the
Brother?
Yeah. Yes. Always brother. The highest title, by the way. That's a very, very good, prelude into what we're going to talk about. Like as I explain it, everybody is different. So, like you said about a brother being receptive to it, there's a way. You understand certain brothers that are jovial. You could joke with them. Some brothers are a little bit more serious. You can't treat everyone the same. It's sort of like a coach having a star player and everybody else is just, the helpers,
Yeah.
the sidekicks and everything like that. You're going to have the main guys that in anything you do, in your business, no matter what you do, there's going to be the main guys. There's going to be the heavy hitters. Then you're going to have some guys that can hit a little. You're going to have guys that can barely hit. You're going to have guys that don't have no business being on the team.
Right.
But your job is to find each value of each of them to make them feel equally accepted and want to be a part of it. So the guy that usually doesn't do anything, he doesn't really talk to anyone, you have to approach him differently than you would the guy that's, he's ecstatic to be there, because you don't need to give that much energy to the guy that wants to do
Right.
it. But you have to make the person that doesn't understand the reasoning behind why he should. And then when you show him that comfort, you show him that love, what happens? Usually that person becomes the person that's in your line now instead of being a sideliner. So what I'm saying is you have to be able to understand and utilize what is in your craft. You can't just take, that guy, he's very, he's motivated. Let's only go with that guy.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the guy that shows no motivation is the secret to making like he's
Just
the
'cause
guy.
he wants the job doesn't mean he can do the job.
That's the thing.
And then vice versa.
And then when you put yourself in a situation like that where the guy just wants the job and you can't really determine, is this guy really fit for it? Mm-hmm. It becomes a real hard thing to tell him that you can't use him.
Yeah.
So that's the problem that we face right now. There are a lot of people, depending on what they see and what they want, they just have to find a pathway to get it. Mm-hmm. So we've seen it. We understand what goes on. If there's something that someone wants, they'll switch a lodge. They'll switch a chapter. They'll switch a commandery. They'll switch a cryptic council.
Yeah.
Because that's what they look for. And like I said, regardless of whatever I've been able to bring to the craft, like you guys know, when I first became a Master Mason, I jumped into steward and I immediately became the shepherder. I shepherded for 4 years. I put my heart into it because other brothers put their heart into it for me. Mm-hmm. I have brothers that are no longer here. One of the brothers I just celebrated his birthday. He's left us 4 years, September 27th, Rod Harris.
Wow.
Worshipful Rod Harris. When I tell you this man, he fought in the war, proud veteran, just took a liking to me and we just, we just spoke. We spoke real life. He believed that I could do stuff, that I can change stuff. I don't really, people don't really understand what that means. Like I said, as far as like doing it for him, I don't do it for him. I do it for the craft, but he also did it for the craft. He just shared his knowledge. And that's what we have to do. While you're doing what you're doing, you're supposed to be preparing the next guy to do exactly what you're doing. But it has to be the right guy. You can't want to hold on to power forever. It's not Masonic.
Of course not.
So you have to be able, that's another part of what Solomon promoted. Why were there 3 Grand Masters? You know, there's certain things like you don't want to share, you don't want to share your burdens as much, but you want to share the love.
Right.
You want to share the comfort. And like you said about men not being able to accept help and not be able to tell them that I'm guilty of the same thing. But at some point, like I'll call you and I will talk because we're on that type of that playing field where we can just say, look, this is what's going on. Look, this is what it is. But how can we do that with everyone? It's impossible.
It is.
But you have to find everyone has to have that guy that they can confide in. But what I'm saying is, as a brotherhood, you don't got to like every one of your brothers, but you better damn sure love them. And that's the thing. That's it. Yeah, that's ultimately what it is. And it's a big distinguishing feature with the words when you describe it, like and love. It's the most used word in our ritual book, love. To just know that you care about them. Maybe he's like, a guy you don't want to be around with all the time. Like you're not going to invite him to your house. That's fine. But if something happens with him or his family, you're going to be the first one to donate.
Of course.
You're going to, things like that's what Masonry is. We're not telling you to go out there and approach every sideliner and say, I want to make you this. But you need to at least reach out to your brothers and see what they bring to the craft. What is the value of what he brings? And that's up to us. And we have to do that on an individual basis. We can't blanket it out there. I can't stand up as worshipful master and say, everyone is doing this. That's never going to work. It's a volunteer organization. But if I talk to brothers and say, I'm looking to do this. I would like to do this. These are the words that you use. This is the verbiage that you use. And you'll be amazed that, oh my God, everybody's lined up.
Yeah, we have brothers. And it's funny because, I'm jovial and I'm all over the place. And a lot of times, I would say a lot of brothers look to me to kind of lead in certain ways. And I'm big on that, but I'm also big in creating more leaders. Like
we just spoke about,
right.
You got to create the new one.
And it's a funny saying I say, and it almost kind of alludes to relinquishing responsibility, but lack of leadership creates leadership.
Yes,
right?
yes.
So a lot of times I'll pull back a little bit, and I like to see who either steps in, and if nobody steps in, that's fine. But I also like to see who's willing to do the job, and who also critiques.
Yes.
Because now in that exchange of, all right, you're starting to offer me some constructive criticism. This is good.
Yes.
You care.
Yes.
Or you don't, right?
Yeah.
You're just looking for a reason to hit me down and say, hey, you're not doing it right.
There you go.
So now this is an opportunity to see how much are you really invested in this,
yes.
right? Okay, hey, I see what you're saying. Can you show me what you mean by that? Maybe next event, can you head this event?
He's not going to do it.
Some guys do. Some guys
most of them just talk.
Most guys don't.
Yes.
I've had guys come here and they call me, hey, the carpet's dirty. Oh, brother, I appreciate you. Thank you for letting me know. I'm at work right now. Is it bad? How long do you think it'll take to vacuum? Oh, I don't know, like maybe a half hour.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So what are you getting into today? Oh, nothing. I'm just hanging out. I got nothing to do. I said, do you mind cleaning up the
carpet? Yeah.
Crickets.
Yeah.
Crickets.
Yes.
And in that, it's like, wow, he can't say no.
Yes.
At that point, so he kind of, I got it.
Yes. But why didn't he just do it?
And in doing that, though, it's a gift wrapped in itself because he also sees how hard it is.
Yes.
How time-consuming it is, pulling out every chair, vacuuming under everything, putting everything back, wrapping up the extension cord, swapping because we have a big room.
Yep. A huge room down there.
And then now next collation, man, the other day because now he's one of those guys that needs the pat on the back.
Yes,
right?
he needs verification.
So now he's telling everybody
that what he did.
Yes. And how hard it was.
Yes.
So now it's almost sprinkling drops of empathy.
Yes.
Oh man, you had to go through that? Wow, Danny does that. Or Mike does that.
Yes.
Or whoever had the job prior to that.
Yes.
Rich does that at the end of every coalition.
Yep.
Like these are things that we take for granted.
Yes.
So next time that you miss your mouth with that pretzel and it gets stomped into the carpet, maybe you'll sweep it up.
Exactly.
You have that empathy, and it sheds light into the system
yes.
itself and what it takes.
To
run
I
the
agree.
building, and with doing that, it also gives you that reassurance.
Yes.
Right? and guys that come up to you, I appreciate what you do here.
Yes,
you know,
because they'll be able to see. Yeah,
it's a beautiful thing, and it's created by a question.
Yes.
Or kind of removing yourself because, like you said, power. A lot of times, guys,
They don't
they'll
wanna
complain about doing the job, but they don't want to relinquish it at all.
That's very, very interesting because we see it the same way. And the person that does it and needs to talk about it, that person has to be spoken to. And the reason that I'm saying this is we serve. The higher you get in Masonry, you're just serving.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Concordant bodies, no matter what your rank is, you're there to serve. And the wording in all of our ritual books explain that. It's just that people don't see it. So the higher you get in rank, you're just serving more. If a lodge calls me right now and they need a senior deacon, they need a King Solomon, they need whatever. If I can do it, I got to be there.
Right.
I'm not above any degree. I'm not above anyone that's a brother.
Yeah.
We're on the same level. So we're here to serve. Why do I need self-gratification? Because I vacuumed. Why do I need self-gratification? Because I came down here and it was a flood and I helped. That's what brothers do. So the one thing that I learned, it's always better to let other people talk about you.
Right.
Never talk about yourself. Yeah, because what happens is if you're a me guy, nobody wants me around. So no matter what happens, okay, they're never going to ask you. After that one instance, most of the brothers would probably stay clear, and that's because they understand what their obligation is. Is it the right thing to do in the craft? I would say no. That's why I say talk to them. Because when I was master, I went to everybody that had an issue. You can ask anybody that was part of Jephthah. Oh, there's a problem here? Okay, so let's all sit down and let's figure it out. Well, what exactly is the problem? And most of the time, it wasn't a problem.
It's just attention.
It's just attention.
Right.
They want attention about what's going on. They want to be able to say that they brought this up.
Right.
And my thing is this, we still owe it to them to see why they need that.
Right.
Like if a guy does that and he goes in and he works and he sweeps up and he's walking around telling everyone, I would like to know, why would you need to tell everyone? Why do you need to let everybody know that you did that? Because it doesn't matter. You did what was best for the craft.
Right.
So why does everyone need to know? And that's why we have certain awards for brothers that do things selflessly. We have the DSA. You have a lot of them in Babylon Lodge because they do it. They're not asking for anything. Why do you think that's recognized? Because nobody wants to hear what you're doing. Just do it. If you're capable of doing it, just do it.
Plus, yeah, what's your motive?
That's the thing.
What's the motive?
What are you trying to do? Are you trying to belittle the fact that it wasn't done and you had to call about it?
Right.
It could be, like you said, like, depending on how you look at it, when people critique, you can tell when it's positive critique.
Right,
We're not
right.
stupid. Nobody is like, oh my, and that's the thing about me. I like to listen to how people say things. I like to hear about the delivery. I like to hear how easily they're prone to anger.
Right.
I want to see the type of man that they are, because that's going to allow me to either cling to you and be, we're good on that level, or I'm going to avoid you. Because if you don't have those characteristics to lead that way, if you can't go to someone that you're angry with and not show that you're angry, you're not a leader.
Right.
So these are the things that you look for. I was just reading something the other day that, if you want to correlate anger, just try to look at your reflection in a pot of boiling water.
Right.
You can't see it, but when it cools down, you can see yourself, right?
Absolutely.
And I just read that the other day. It was part of a book. I was just reading a little thing. I was like, what?
It goes the same with criticism.
Yes.
They say criticism should be gentle like the steadiest rain, right? Careful to not wash out the roots.
Yes.
And in Masonry, it's the same thing, whether it's delivering ritual.
Yep.
A lot of times.
That's a great point.
The critique.
That's a great point.
It's not saying, hey, I appreciate your participation in this degree.
Yes.
It's more of, hey, I know what it is.
Yes.
This is what it is.
Yes.
Right? I don't know, ritual parrots, I forgot what the term
I don't know
was.
what it is. I get it. I get what you're saying. And
But
it
takes people, like somebody who might be inclined to join line
Yes.
or partake,
it's the worst thing.
they fall back.
That is a great, that is also a great assessment of the situation. I'm glad that you brought that up, because that all leads into what we're trying to bring and what we're trying to accomplish. What is the point of dressing down someone that tried very hard to perform in a degree, at the degree? Wouldn't it make sense to bring him to the side after and give him that positive critique and let him know what it is? You have some brothers, like I get the guys that just know it all And like I said, in certain things with opening, I've been guilty of it as well, where you just like, you'll mumble it because you know it.
And it's
But-
also the love.
Yeah, it's the love for it too, but sometimes you can kind of, violate with the love because brothers don't want to hear you correcting them. And I understand that. I've been appointed by our Grand Master as an, assistant Grand Lecturer. So I understand that even more now. I don't want to say anything about what anybody's doing because I've been there. I've forgotten a line. I've gotten, stalled out. I understand it. But as you go through it and you actually see it, you have to know how to do that positive reinforcement. And I think people lose that because you have some people that'll actually start saying the whole part of the degree while the guy is standing there doing it.
Yeah.
That no matter what it is, that is not positive reassurance in any aspect. And what should happen and what I would recommend is you let like the secretary maybe do it from his, from his station and just read it out while he helps out. But trying to go and do a whole thing off the sideline to make it seem like, okay, I know this.
Right.
It's a joke because you're not helping that brother. Like you said,
ego,
it just doesn't make any sense. So I definitely agree with what you're saying.
And it's also the most important part is that it's supposed to be a memorable experience for the candidate.
Yeah, it's all about the candidate.
Right.
And the funny thing is, I'm going to be here with the School of Instruction, which you've allowed me gracefully to hold at your lodge on Wednesday, October 23rd. And that's part of what I'm going to be talking about with the first degree. You're bringing in somebody that has no idea what's going on in Masonry.
Right.
You're doing certain things. He's blindfolded. All these things are happening. Don't you think it should be the most comforting experience for him?
Absolutely.
These are the things that I don't understand. So if he's blindfolded and he hears someone correcting a guy and it's just like a whole back and forth and, some guys get angry when you do it, depending on their temperament, it's like, why, I studied hard, and it's like, it's the degree.
Right.
It's sacred. So that's great that you brought that up. Like it's certain things that we do, and I understand that you brought it up. Sometimes it's for the love of the craft, but you can love the craft and be silent.
Yeah.
You can. And like I said, I think it's always best just based on what I've been being told and being taught, going through the courses and learning about being an AGL. Having one prompter is fine. And you can announce it as master before the degree. The only person that is prompting is the secretary. Or if you have such a big room, maybe you have somebody over there in the West that can prompt on that side. So that way, you don't have an issue with this side. But the master needs to start saying that.
Right.
You can't have sideliners affected. Like you said, it's a very sacred degree. To me, the EA degree is the most important degree because whether or not you do a good job determines what's going to happen with that candidate.
Right.
For the rest of his Masonic journey.
Right.
Like, why am I here? I hear horror stories about degrees. Why am I here?
I think next meeting I might do an opening and closing and have everybody just blindfolded. Just take you all the way back, right? Listen with the, the ear.
Yeah.
Right?
No, that is actually very interesting. And realistically, it makes them be more aware of their surroundings.
Right.
You're creating an environment of trust. But none of them would have a problem doing it.
I don't
You
think
know
so.
why?
I don't think
Because
so.
they've already gone through it.
Right.
They know that they can trust their brothers. Going back to what I said before in the beginning, you are recommending somebody to join our fraternity that's going to be around your family, your friends. These brothers must be held accountable for their actions. They have to be. I make sure with anything, and my wife will tell you, I'm very careful, like even above with like what I do with my family, to not overstep my bounds, to not do something that may seem infringing upon my brothers in the craft, because it's so important to me. I don't want to do it. So like with my real brother, I'm like, whatever. You say whatever to him. Don't matter. Your uncle, you're not worried about it.
Right.
But you're a little bit more, you curb it to make sure that you don't, put that off to someone in the craft because you don't want them to view that. Even if you get angry or whatever, you take that brother to the side. It's never in front of a crowd or anything like that. Sometimes brothers do things that you feel, it's a violation.
Yeah.
As men, we take them to the side and we discuss that.
Also, in the closing charge, one of the most important parts is show the world how Masons love one another.
Yeah, that's
It's
very, very, it's everything that you're saying, you're describing it. And you're saying what I told you guys in the beginning. Everyone, Masonry is life. You're explaining exact excerpts of why Masonry is life.
Right.
If you just listen to what you say at the end of every meeting and you go out there and show what Masons are, how can we fail?
It's conduct. It's conduct. It's
Number one.
Right.
Number one is conduct. I just came into your lodge. There's been, obviously the hurricane, everything that happened in North Carolina. I just met people that are family of some of the brothers in your craft. The way I presented myself to them, they said it out loud as I was walking past and greeting all of them. Mm-hmm. This is impressive. Why is he so? Yeah. This is what we are. This is what we do. I don't walk past someone and not introduce myself as a brother.
Of course.
I'm not looking for the highest ranking individual in the room, or even the brother that I knew from your lodge. I'm not going to go to him first. I see someone here I never met. That's what Masons do.
Yeah.
So as I'm walking up, they're like, oh my God, that was so impressive. Like, I don't know. I don't know what they've seen of Masons, but that's the only thing they should see of Masons.
It's funny that you say that, because even today, I'm coming from work and I'm coming down the escalator. Nobody's on the escalator, but there's these two young kids. They had to be maybe 13, 14 years old.
Okay.
And, as far as escalator etiquette, they were in the way, right?
Yeah.
Instead of being off to the right. So as I'm walking, I say, excuse me, gentlemen, And as they move out of the way, thank you, right?
Yes.
And in my head, I'm like, I wonder if anybody's ever spoke, like a man of that age has ever offered them that type of respect.
Probably not.
Especially in this day and age.
Probably not. Probably not.
So, it's just something that sat with me. And like you said, you just give everybody the respect that you want.
Every member of the human family.
Right.
It's written.
Right.
So if it's already plainly put out for you, what is your excuse to stray?
Right.
Sun Tzu, like the art of war, if we give direct orders and it's not received well, it's our fault.
Right.
Just
I know the quote.
Yes.
May I ask?
Yeah, go ahead. You got the quote?
If the army fails, it's not due to the army's inadequacy. It's due to unclear communication.
That's right. You're really good. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I recently started reading it, and I think I'm probably maybe like a quarter of the way through, and it's so interesting the way this man is saying this.
Yeah.
Because if it's not clear, right, it's your fault.
Right.
But if it's clear, it's their fault.
Right.
Because if you make the communication clear enough and everybody understands, and you ask the craft, does everybody understand what we just spoke about? It's on them now. If you're not clear and they fail,
you're doing them a disservice.
You're doing them a disservice.
Right.
So again, you're still serving. You're talking about a guy that ran an empire, that led men, and he was still serving. So how are we better than that? Leaders are leaders. We serve. We have to keep that mindset. It's not about us trying to be, the top guy, that doesn't matter. Those two young ladies that I just met downstairs, they have family in North Carolina. That made them feel good to see someone come in and just acknowledge their existence before going to a brother that he knows. And I understand that as a Mason. Every member of the human family, because they're going to take that with them. Oh my God, this is what you guys do?
Right.
And then they want to encourage their men in their life. You should become a Mason.
Yeah.
Those are really...
You represent Masonry and your walk of life.
But how do our brothers do it? You see, how do most of are they doing it? Are we seeing things where it's not being represented properly? Are we saying anything? That's the problem. Because if you ask me my honest opinion about anything, I'm going to tell you.
Yeah.
It's just what it is.
It holds true. It really does. Like, even in joining Masonry, right? If you have an emblem on your car, you shouldn't be driving crazy.
There you go. You represent the craft.
Represent the craft.
Yes.
And, as you do that, as you walk through life, the goal isn't to be proud to be a Mason. The goal is for Masonry to be proud that you're a member.
There you go. You serve the craft. So again, we're saying it all in the same wording. It's never about us.
Right.
We got that part. It's our job to make the new brothers that are coming in notice that. Because if you teach them that same guy that'll call you and tell you about a problem, if you taught him that through his second and third degree, it won't be a call. It'll just be done. Because he would be taught to serve. Right. When I was a steward, we were just talking about this earlier, my wife and I. She's like, you've been doing this for a while. Remember when we were a student, I brought my daughters and we cleaned the kitchen up? You weren't even a master mason at that point. Why'd you do it? Because when I became a fellow craft, they taught me those things. After the first degree, I was like, I didn't know what was going on. I'm learning this new book. I just, passed proficiency. I had no idea what was going on. Fellow craft, I was like, oh, I'm probably going to become a master mason soon. Let me see what's going on.
Right.
And they asked me, you said, look, these guys are going to not be here. I know you're not eligible to be a master. You're not a master mason, so you can't technically be a steward, but we need this favor. I didn't ask them why me. I called my wife. Can you help me out tonight? We got to go clean something up. All right. And we cleaned the kitchen, mopped the floors and everything like that. I didn't go into the next meeting like, oh, I did that.
That's what I did, right?
No, it was just done. And I was taught that. So a lot of it has to do with education as well. How many of the lodges abroad, here in the US, how many of us have the education after a degree? We have that at Jeff the Lodge. We had Worshipful Robert Pavito, DSA. He was a guy that did the courses after the ritual. So we were able to understand what was going on. Everyone should have someone that teaches you what it meant when you went through it. Even in other chapters, you got Alcyone, who is they're a Masonic observant lodge. Observant Masonry. Okay, so they do a lot of other things that are old-fashioned, but they realize what the meaning of the ritual is. Worshipful Bradley Hubbard. If you guys have never visited his lodge, the reason that that lodge is special to me is because they actually teach you meaning. They make you understand it. After their degrees, they take their time to show you everything that happens in the first degree. After you do the fellowcraft, they take their time to make sure that you understand. That to me is beautiful because you know why? I had it.
Yeah.
At Jeffton, I realized what it was when I'm sitting there as a new guy and I have this guy telling me about all this stuff and the towers and Boaz this. Look, I don't know what you're talking about, but I appreciate that you're teaching me that because I could have just got the degree and went home with the book and then figured out when I can come in to get shepherded.
Right.
But you took the time out of your schedule to show it to me, and that time is valuable. You guys at Babylon Lodge, the best table lodges I've been to. And I tell everybody in the district, oh, but you haven't seen mine. It doesn't matter. You guys run it well, and you should be proud of that. Like I said, I'm always going to tell you what I feel. People may say, oh, you haven't been to mine. I don't need to see anything. You could also have a good one. But the way you guys organize it, the way Matt Sales, you guys do it,
right.
You guys understand it. You're veterans. You got your table. You got your cloth. You got the salt. You got everything for the fallen. You got everything. You got speakers. You've had our current most worshipful, Stephen Adam Rubin, most worshipful of the Grand Lodge of the State of New York. You've had him at your table lodges. You guys present that. Like every part of Masonry is so special if we just apply ourselves. Other lodges can do what you do, do what you do at your table lodge. You guys probably just take more pride in it. The same way if you take pride in ritual. How many rehearsals are you having before your degrees?
Yeah.
What are you doing? Are you just like, you're winging it? Okay, yeah, guys, this is your part. It's us. We have to serve. We have to know. You have a date coming up with a first degree? Mandatory. We got to have 2 or 3 rehearsals. We have to keep this craft going. If you look at our numbers, it's steadily declining. What is the reason? I think a lot of it has to do with education, which is why the Grand Lodge is promoting all of these new classes. They're promoting all this education because they want you to know that it's special. It's a privilege to be a Mason. It's not just something that's given. It's a privilege. And I don't think many people, when we present ourselves, they don't represent that. They're just a Mason. You have a ring, you have an emblem. I'm a Mason. That's not, it's life. And it all comes back to being a brother. What makes you and I have a relationship like we have? I didn't know you before Masonry. What made you, pull your hair down like, this guy, I could talk to this guy. What made you do that? What made you say, you know what? I kind of like that guy.
Right. Yeah, it's the authenticity. I mean, we spoke on it earlier. And the fact that you presented yourself in a way of service. If there's anything you need, I got you.
That's it.
And the only similarity we had at that time, which as time went on, we figured out we're very similar,
yes.
was that you treated me like a brother.
That's it.
And through this fraternity, that's, like you said, it's the highest title is brother. So if we could close it out.
Yeah.
The definition of a brother to you and what a brother should present.
A brother should be there at any time when needed, regardless of what the situation is, within the length of their cable toe and the square and angle of their work. It's simple. That's it. If you can do it, you do it. If you can't, you can't.
Right.
But you make every effort to be there because that's what the history, that's why our fraternity was founded on
thrive,
brotherly
yeah.
love. So we have to present that. So we can't make excuses for that.
Right.
Within the length of your cable toe and the square and angle of your work, if anybody ever asks me what a brother is, that is what it is.
Right. Circumstance does not dictate responsibility.
There you go. And you make every effort. If you had an issue even right now, and look, Jeremiah, I need you to do this. It doesn't matter what's going on. I could call my wife, look, I'm going to be late. I got to do this. That's what our craft is. And what's interesting is, it's kind of bad, but I would help you before I help my real brother because I have an obligation.
It's an obligation.
It's an obligation, so I'm held to a higher standard. When I knelt at the altar, I understood what I was doing. And that's why the worshipful master asked you if you're still willing to do it. He asked you.
Right.
You know, you asked the question several times, are you willing to do it? So I hold that in a high regard. Do I love my brother? Yes. But the craft is very, very special, and I took that obligation.
It's your choice.
It's free will.
Your word.
I gave my word. So I'm going to do my best to present that. Yeah, okay, my brother, you know, sometimes he might be in a situation where maybe somebody else can help him, and he's just reaching out. If the brother in the craft reaches out to you, they really need it. Because like all men, it's our pride. It's so hard for us to say we need help. So I know if a brother reaches out to me, he needs help.
Yeah.
Why am I going to make him feel like less of a person if I can do it by saying, I can't? No, I'm going to make every effort. And if I can't do it, I'm going to thoroughly explain why I can't. That's another thing that shows love. Yeah, you could text me like, Danny, Danny texted me. I need this done. I could just put, I can't. Or I could say, yo, Dan, man, I'm really sorry. I got this going on. I can let you understand that it is other things that's conflicting with what you're doing. Right. You're going to have a softball game. I got a wedding from a brother. Mm-hmm. I can't not go to his wedding.
Right.
It's at Prime Ribbon Huntington. He's like, bro, what? You know what I'm saying? Like, I can't do that. And I looked at it like, because that's how I met Chano. That's how I met all you guys at the softball game in Belmont Park. That was 2014, bro.
Wow.
Look how long that was.
Years.
10 years.
Oh my God.
10 years.
You've been trying to get it back.
10 years. And like I said, I led a team where you guys set me up. I don't forget that because I didn't have any brothers to help me. And all my team was Babylon Lodge, but they were still brothers. They set me up. They dropped some of the balls that you guys hit that they could have caught. Because why? Because it was your fraternity was bigger than the whole. It was a district thing, and Babylon was versus the world. And you took pride in your craft. I'll never forget that. That's when I first met all you guys. And you guys could have said, you know what? It was just me and Greg Gatto. It was just me and Worshipful Greg Gatto. He couldn't work. He couldn't help because he had like a thing with his ankle. And then you said, you know what? We got extra guys. And you set me up. But you set me up in a brotherly way. You gave me all your players. Don't worry about it, bro. Yo, it's good. And they just started doing things to make you win. Dropping wide open grounders and everything. But it was beautiful. We had fun. We laughed. Your older members were just so emphatic. It was the first time they were meeting me. Yeah. Oh, my God. And remember, I wasn't even a Master Mason.
Wow.
You guys welcomed me. I was not a Master Mason.
Yeah. I don't think I was either.
You probably wasn't.
I don't think I was
we
either.
were all new, but we were already learning what the craft was. That's 2014.
Wow.
So that's how amazing our craft is. Yeah. You took someone that, I think I was an EA at the time, and you made me feel like a part of what you were.
It's family.
And that's what Masonry is. It's a family. And if we can just keep out, the people that are not leading with their heart, this will go on for centuries and centuries long after we're gone. And that's what's going to make it hold its standard. It's the stature and the love and everything that we present. We could go back to 2014 before our journey even started. Look at us. You're a past master. I'm a past master.
Wow.
2014, I met you in Babylon Lodge. Chano, actually, as soon as I got out of the car, he's like, get over here, brother, and made me. He was making the hamburgers, I think, like really, really rare or whatever. I was like, I'm not eating that. And he was like, I'm going to make you what you want. He made me medium well, brotherly, like it was. Look, man, I really appreciate that. And I always tell Chano, regardless, I love you for that. Because you could have been a little standoffish. I'm a new guy. You don't know who I am. Right. I'm just from Jeff the Lodge. I'm an EA at a softball game that you guys put together. What is he doing here? Like, what, I shouldn't even be there. The way that you guys presented yourself, there was nothing that I wanted for. And I'm still to this day extremely grateful that you guys welcomed me like that, because that alone impressed my wife. These guys I was like, I don't know anybody from this lodge. And she's like, they treating you like that? They're really, the guy hugs you as soon as you come in.
It's all love.
It's all love. I didn't know Chano. This is what I'm saying. And where else are you going to meet brothers like that?
Right.
It doesn't matter what you do at your job. You can know coworkers for years. You don't got that connection.
No.
You come into a craft event, you come into a brother's world that has gone through the same degrees that you have. That connection.
It doesn't happen.
It's just not going to work. So that's why.
It's worldly. It's worldly.
No matter where you go.
Yeah.
I've been in other states, other places. Oh, you're a brother? Oh, come on.
What can I do to help
What can I do to help you?
Yeah.
That's what Solomon wanted, and that's what we should continue to do. That's what a brother is. What you guys were for me that day, as a lodge, I still to this day solely appreciate that love. And I've exemplified that with every brother that I've met. And even the brothers that I do, that have kind of shunned me off, or they're not willing to accept the love, I give them their space. Because you got to remember, some brothers are not ready to accept it.
Right.
They're not. Their bodies are not ready to absorb that type of love. Let them be. But the brothers that understand what I am, and the brothers that I'm able to have helped in any way and give that love, it's a reflection of when I first went there to just see it. I'm still early on at EA. And the guy is making me my new burger. He had all them made already, but they were freaking leaking blood. I'm not eating that. I don't eat stuff like that. Give me medium. Oh, no problem. He opened up a fresh one, okay, and made it medium well.
Yeah.
That he didn't even take one that was already the way it was. He made me a fresh one. Like I said, it's and I look at the smallest details. That's just me. Like I told you, it all goes back to the beginning. I look at the smallest details. Are you really willing to help me, or are you just, you're just winging it?
Right. That evaluation period where it's like, what can I get from this person?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And I got nothing but love. My wife was, she was shocked. She's never ever seen anything like this.
Wow.
Not knowing any of you, I had no idea. You look the same exact way. Like, yo, Dad, what? Like, I had no idea who you were. We had a blast. And look at this, though. Chano's daughter was there. Would he have felt comfortable if it wasn't Masonry?
Right.
With just a random guy coming up there? Yeah. He knew what I was. Even as an EA, I took the first obligation. I know what it is.
Yep.
I respect that. That's sacred to me. Never once was anything questioned.
Yeah.
And that's beautiful to me because, yes, some brothers are going to use it to swindle their way in. Like you see guys getting expelled and stuff like that.
Of course.
And it's disgusting. But when it's really true and what our craft stands for, there's nothing that can touch this.
Yeah, and it's not going to be accepted.
Never. And we have to do it as a job. It's part of our job to make sure that it's never accepted. Because when we bring people that we love around,
it's a standard.
It's a standard. And you guys showed that. I completely forgot. I was an EA. You definitely wasn't a Master Mason yet.
No.
You definitely were not a Master Mason. We were all new.
Yeah.
And we were just learning, but you were a little bit more comfortable because it was your lodge. I'm an outsider. And remember, it was only Babylon and Jephthah there.
Yeah.
It was me and Worshipful Greg Gatto.
Wow.
And you guys,
I can't believe it was 10 years ago.
10 years.
Wow.
And now you finally getting into the softball game on a date that I have a wedding.
We'll run it back.
Yeah, look.
10 years. 10 years from now.
No, listen, I can't wait because you guys cheated me. I want to put together a real team. You guys outright cheated me, bro. And Chano's daughter played softball in college, which he told me afterwards. You guys outright cheated me.
It wasn't meant that way.
No, it definitely was, but I appreciate it because it was with love. The beating that you gave us, it was love.
We'll get another one in.
Yes, please, let's do that.
On that, brother, thank you so much for your time.
Not a problem, brother. Anytime.
It's been a pleasure.
Anytime.
Love you, bro.
Love you, bro.